everyone, and welcome back for another episode of The Bright Side of Life. I am your host, Melissa Bright, and today I am talking to Anjie Cho, and I have had the pleasure of talking to her actually twice before, but I have never had her on my podcast. This has been for another summit that I have done, but Anjie is a world renowned Feng Shui educator based in New York, and she is also an educator. And we are here going to be talking about all of Feng Shui and her new book that just came out in the beginning of April, which is called Mindful Homes: Creating Healing Living Spaces with Mindfulness and Feng Shui. So, if you can guess what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about all that fun stuff. Anjie, welcome to the Bright Side of Life. How are you today?
I'm good, Melissa. It's so nice to see you again.
Again, I
Yeah.
know. Now we're just becoming buddies at this point.
Yep, I know. It's 3 times in well, I think I first met you in October,
Mhm.
and then we met the day that I fell, which was March 1st, and today.
Yeah, you'll never forget March 1st.
No.
You'll remember it for a while.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, so we're going to I wanted to first ask you before we get into everything, just to kind of give my listeners maybe a broad overview of what feng shui is, so they're not like, what the hell is this woman talking about? She's already lost me. So why don't we start with the basics, and then we'll get into the other fun stuff.
Well, that's a great place to start with the basics. So, defining what is feng shui. So, feng shui is a modality that comes from China, and many different cultures have some form of feng shui where they look at their environment and they see how to position themselves and look at the energy and the flow of energy around their spaces in relationship to the natural world. And so feng shui is a practice that came specifically from China, but again, we have many ways. Different cultures have many ways of looking at this, and feng shui is one of the more well-known practices like this that look at our like physical spaces and how they integrate with our energetic spaces. Um, but there's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of people think feng shui is about just moving furniture around, but I wanted to invite people to look a little bit deeper in my book to see the connection that feng shui has to the Dharma, to mindfulness meditation, as well as a way to approach our homes and create a relationship with our homes in a way that we don't typically, we haven't been conditioned to understand. We've been conditioned to forget about this connection to our environment.
Mm, so true. And that's why I was so excited to talk to you in the first place, because I am all about learning anything and everything. I want to learn about it. And so I'm like, I can't wait to have this conversation. Now I have a much better understanding, but I know even after reading your book, I'm still like, have a thousand questions about it. But what struck me in your book at the very beginning is exactly what you just said now, is people have these misconceptions of like, must move furniture to have energy and to have good things happen to me and have all this good luck and good vibes and all, and all this stuff,
Mhm.
when it goes so much further than that. And so I guess, what are some of the most like common misconceptions when we're thinking of feng shui, so we don't go there?
Sure. So, well, the one that I think is the most important is that it's only about fixing your home and it's very additive. And it makes sense because that's what's easy to sell, that's what's
Yeah.
easy to put on a listicle in our kind of l- low attention span society that we have, right? And we think that like, oh, we could take a pill or a supplement or medication or we can meet that perfect person and our lives will be amazing and everything will change. And just like we know that doesn't it doesn't really work that way. It's the same thing with Feng Shui, that there's actually an invitation. Instead of looking at your Feng Shui as a way to add something, or a hard and fast rule about you need to have this in a particular way, and if you do this, you'll receive a lot of wealth. It's not as simple as that, but instead, this is an invitation to notice that we connect with our environments, that we have a relationship with our environments, just like we have a relationship with many things outside of ourselves, like people, our families, our spaces, our environment, our world, our neighborhoods. So it's an invitation to start to create those connections and acknowledge those relationships. And then when we have curiosity, we can explore and uncover a lot of wisdom within that. So that's the biggest misconception. Another one is that feng shui equals decluttering.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So it's not necessarily true. Like, if someone asked me to help them declutter their home, I would back away very quick. I would like be out of that room real fast, because I don't know anything about decluttering. I don't know anything about professional organizing. It's a different
Mhm.
it's a different practice. And when feng shui was developed, there was no such thing as clutter. The clutter is really a modern day issue. We have so much stuff now after we've,
That's
become
crazy.
this industrialized society, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And then one other misconception, that there's a lot, but another one would be that it's the same as interior design.
Mm.
So it's not the same as interior design. It's in fact, a lot of feng shui consultants would possibly be considered not very skilled at making places look nice. So um, it's a whole different practice as well. Although, a professional organizer could also be a feng shui consultant, and those could dovetail really well, just like an interior designer would be able to weave weave into their work feng shui discipline, the discipline of feng shui practices, feng shui techniques, and actually really do something amazing for their client, and make it happen in their space. But it's not the same thing.
I love that you said that, because without the education and really understanding of what it is, that kind of would be where my brain goes to. Not so much the declutter, but I would probably think like an interior designer. Oh, she just automatically knows feng shui. Like, that's just that she comes with that skill automatically. Um, and that's clearly not true. So before we get into any further, I do want to backtrack a little bit to kind of let our listeners know how you even got into the curiosity of feng shui and wanting to become an educator about this. So, what's your backstory?
So my backstory is that I um always, as a child, I was always very interested in moving things around my space. And I would rearrange my home all the time, and I was very interested in art. I loved creating things. And so then when I became an adult, I ended up becoming an architect, working with people in their spaces. But within the typical like way of doing architecture, I found a lot of um, I found a lot of reward in that, working with people in their spaces. However, at some point, like during my Saturn return in my late 20s, I realized that things had to change in my life. So I decided to start studying yoga and meditation, and I needed to make my life a little bit more spiritual and look a
Mm.
little bit deeper, because I was really unhappy. I was really depressed. And, during your Saturn return is a time that you start to relook at the structures in your life. So I started studying yoga and meditation, and that led me to consider, well, I spend all of my waking hours basically working, and how can I apply more spirituality to the work that I do, and provide and put more meaning to that. So that led me to start studying feng shui, and then I was really delighted to learn that feng shui was more than interior. It wasn't interior decorating, it wasn't like moving furniture around only, and it was a really deep practice that you could study for a lifetime or many lifetimes. So I started studying Feng Shui. I joined a Feng Shui certification program, a 3-year program actually, and my whole life turned around because I got laid off. That at that time it was 2009. You remember during that recession,
Yep.
and I couldn't get a job. So I had taken Feng Shui classes, and I always wanted to take this 3-year certification program that I ended up taking, but I had every excuse in the book. It's too expensive. I mean, it was tens. It was like, I think, $15,000. It was a lot. It was a lot
Yeah.
of money back then.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't want to do this professionally. So I made every excuse. But then when I got laid off, I just realized, why don't I do something for myself? So I was like, well, maybe I should travel to India. And then I decided to stay, and I had some projects falling into my lap as an architect on
Mhm.
my own. And I decided to dive into this 3-year Feng Shui certification program. And as soon as I did something that was purely for my love and more for my to satisfy me, to bring joy into my life, to do something that didn't have to be productive, that didn't have to be for work, and it didn't have to and I was willing to invest a lot of time, money,
Mhm.
and energy in this, and just kind of take a leap of faith that I could do something that I enjoy. All these doors started opening for me, and now here I am with 2 books and on a podcast with you, and we've done 2 summits together with amazing other so many amazing practitioners.
Yeah.
So and I'm teaching students, which has been very rewarding. So I've been given so many gifts, and I never wanted any of this either. It just kind of fell. It just like falls into my lap. So when I decided to do something that I loved, all these opportunities fell into my lap. I never wanted to write a book. I never wanted to write 2 books. Never wanted to like teach, never wanted to be on a podcast, never wanted to be a feng shui consultant, none of these things. I just thought I would be working for an architecture firm my whole life.
Wow. It's the most exciting part of your story to me was like when you decided that you needed a spiritual aspect in your life. And that's when you started doing yoga and meditation and learning more about that. And then decided to do feng shui because that is spirituality, right?
Mhm.
I
Yes.
mean, that's what I think is so amazing about your story that I mean, this clearly is obviously what was supposed to happen. And would you call this am I even gonna say this right? Is this your dharma?
Uh, yeah,
Or
or it's
not?
my dharmic path. I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah. It's definitely my path in life. My
Yeah.
reason it's part of my gift to the world to teach feng shui and to share it.
Yeah. And when you started doing this, because when I read your book, first of all, your book is so simplistic and it's beautiful. If you're on YouTube right now, this is her book. I mean, if you can see it, it's beautiful, but it's also such an easy and simple read. And so if you're just completely foreign to what it is, I just think this book is such like a good place to start and from a place of what you said of like getting curious about things, and we'll dive into more of like a different part that I want to talk to you about. Um but it's really easy to understand. And I lost what else I was going to say
Oh, well,
about it.
but that's also something that I did intentionally and how I teach. I think that we all have a responsibility to present teachings in a way that people can receive them and digest them. Otherwise,
Mhm.
like, what's the point?
Right. Because then this book would just be on a coaster or something and people aren't going to understand it because but that is why I read your book because no offense, I do get tons and tons of like books sent to me, and
Mhm.
sometimes I can't keep up with all the books sent to me. But I'm like, this is first of all, I'm very curious in it. And second of all, it is easy to read. And that's what I was gonna say is like from somebody that doesn't know a lot about it, this is like just a great book to pick up and be like, okay, I understand a little bit.
Well, because there's also a lot of invitations in the book where it's not
Mhm.
about me telling you what feng shui is, but rather me offering different practices or exercises or explorations that allow you to cultivate your own definition of it or your own understanding of it or see how it fits into your life, which I think is so important. Again, I think as an educator, that's a great responsibility for me to present things in a way that people can digest and also take my ego out of it. Like, I don't need to be in the room. You can just look at the book. I don't need to be there. And also I'm just one person. Like, I can only work with so many people, and I don't want to work with everyone. I don't need to have everyone I don't want everyone coming to me. Instead, like, how could I offer something that would be helpful for everyone, a newbie, but also I think there's also something there for longtime practitioners,
Mhm.
because I um my intention with this book was to bring together my own experience of feng shui as a mindfulness practice, which is something that I've kind of
Yes.
cultivated in the last 20 years with my spiritual practices, my meditation practices, along with feng shui.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of what I want to talk about. First of all, when I read your book, I'm already going to be the first person to admit when I am learning about something, I am going to follow these directions like nobody's business. And I'm like, if you tell me to put the plant here, I'm going to put it here. I won't even ask questions. I don't know why that is. So when I start reading this stuff, when you sometimes will say, maybe a bold statement that I'm like, "Oh my god, I have to move this now or my whole life is going to fall apart before my eyes." Then I'll read the next statement and then you're like, "But if you can't make this happen, it's okay," or "You don't have to do it at this very moment," or "Just get curious about it." And I'm like, "Okay, okay. I don't need to do it right now at 9 o'clock at night." And that's what I really loved because I feel like we are in such a time in our lives that we're being talked at by so many people, and we want to learn and digest all this stuff, and it's just like we have to go do that thing that person said. And I really like the invitation of just getting curious about your spaces, because even the one night when I started reading your book, I just laid in my bed with my eyes closed and just started like going around my apartment physically, like if I had to see energy, like where it would be going and how well it would be flowing, kind of like the incense, like that you see go down that little really cool thing.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, is it flowing well? I'm like, do I have a feng shui gift that I could just see this so easily? Which I don't know that I do. Um, but yeah, I like that you invite people to be curious, and it's not just a you have to go do this. You recommend it. You obviously kind of give the science and the reasoning why, obviously, but I like the curiosity part too a lot.
And also from my experience, there's a lot of people that have exceptions to what
Mm,
I can write in a book, because I'm writing a book for a lot of people. And so some people just are not able to do some things. Like, some people
right.
may not have a working stove, or some people may not be able to have a very spacious place, or maybe someone has no room for their own desk. So how do I um, write something that most people can benefit from? But,
Mhm.
there's also, like, what you touched upon, there's a part in my book where I invite people to go see how the chi flows through their space,
Yep.
right? And you were doing that. And I did this, I, set up that visualization kind of meditation at a retreat that I did recently for my book. And it's interesting though, almost everyone could really visualize it because you're so accustomed to your home, you know it so well, and that's why feng shui is kind of like an amazing practice that people get really excited because they are so connected to their homes. And
Mhm.
it's also pretty safe, like non-invasive, because it's not actually working on your body or something internal, but it's outside of you. So it's a little bit safer to make a change outside of you. And
Yes.
what's amazing though is those small changes outside of you can reflect onto you and create small changes within you. And one other interesting thing about that visualization, when you go through your home and kind of see how
Mhm.
the chi would flow through your home, I also invite people to see what actually happens when you walk through your home, and I wonder if there's a difference, right?
Right. Yeah, very true. That is so true. And the fact that you say that feng shui is a mindfulness practice is such a great way to look at it because once again we've said this so many times already, in such a busy world that we're already having our attention grabbed at every which way,
Mhm.
like taking the time to slow down and making this a fun practice to be mindful of, why is this placed here, what does this mean for me, um getting curious about it, like taking that time instead of just, I must move this here to get this result.
Right, it doesn't have to be an XYZ, it could be like
No.
a whole song or like a
Yeah.
jumble of letters together. Because also one thing that you touched upon, that we have such speedy lives now, and we do things mindlessly. It's almost like when we just eat and we're not tasting, right?
Yep.
And we do that with our homes too. We just kind of just barge through our homes, and we numb out, and we don't pay attention to what's happening. But our environment has so many messages that it wants to share with us. There's so many messages in the world that we are missing, that we're completely blind to, if we would just slow down and look. And I think one nice thing about the pandemic was that a lot of people were forced to be in their
Yep.
home and did they were forced to kind of see, oh wait, like this isn't working, like why am I living here? Like a lot of people
Mhm.
left New York. They're like, why am I living here? I don't want to be here. Or why was I here, and why do I not want to be here anymore? Or people also, a lot of people moved to their childhood homes. A lot of people moved back to their childhood homes, like to
Wow.
save money or to take care of an aging parent. Like there was a lot of revisiting of spaces. Like, what does that mean to move back into your childhood home, and how does that feel, and how does it feel to be taking care of your aging parents? So, but we just spent so much time indoors that a lot of people were kind of forced to kind of see these
Mhm.
messages that they were ignoring for so long.
Yeah, and that's very true. And when ours, so my ex, he started his painting business actually right before the pandemic, and it was crazy because his business just, I mean, blossomed in the first year because nobody was leaving their house and they're like, I am tired of looking at this damn wall or whatever it was. I couldn't believe it, but in our home we even did like a major like renovation, if you will, of this back room that was just kind of like stagnant. At that time, I had no idea of feng shui, but just the point of it just being like, I need something new, something to make me lively, more energetic, literally, because we're going to be here for the next 4, 5, 6 months.
That
It's
turned
just,
into like 2 years.
yeah, exactly. It's just crazy that it happened. And I think, I mean, I guess it's kind of weird because in a way, like I feel like I've just now recently started my spirituality practice within like the last year and a half. And it's almost like you were supposed to come into my life so I could understand this aspect also of
Ah.
spirituality, like I kind of dabble in a couple things, like meditation and yoga and things like that. But then
Mhm.
I'm like, well, what is this? And I'm absolutely right now obsessed with just like energy and understanding that energy is everything. So,
Mhm.
like, to me, feng shui is a very, very important practice if you really want to understand what is going on and what we can't see and how it is truly affecting us.
Yeah, and it's interesting once you do start unpacking that feng shui box a little bit, or opening that door. I mean, I just said it, like opening the door. You see that it's in so much of our language. It's in so many of our metaphors. Like we talk about
Mhm.
opening doors, crossing thresholds, opening portals. Like this is all um it's a integration of our mind and our hearts and our spaces around us, but also grounding us in what's practical because it's happening in your home. It's physically happening, but it's also happening in the invisible spaces of your homes. It's happening.
Yeah.
There's chi, there's life force energy in the objects in your home,
Yep.
within you, and also moving in the spaces the spaces between things.
Exactly. And I wanted to tell you this. I didn't write it on my notes, but you had done the you speak about crystals in your book and
Mhm.
break that down, and I haven't delved into any of that yet. But you did give me permission that if I walked outside and there was a rock that just spoke to me, then I can take that rock. And I swear to God, yesterday I was not even looking. I was letting my dog outside to go to the bathroom and he was meandering. And there was a like orangish red rock that definitely was not like there were no rocks around it. And I grabbed
And
it and now it's in my pocket.
nice.
I don't know what it means, but literally, here it is.
Wow. It's very nice and smooth.
Yeah, and it's like orangish red. Well, yeah, almost kind of purple.
Interesting. That's a lot of colors there.
Yeah, but I thought it was cool because but this is like what we're kind of saying in terms of like being mindful. I have walked up and down my little driveway out by my apartment a million times, and then I just saw that, and I'm like, okay, this is literally like part of Mother Nature of Earth. I need to be mindful of that.
Yes, and that actually leads to another misconception where people think that so for some reason people think feng shui, if you apply feng shui to your home, it needs to cost a lot of money. So so that's one thing I wanted to express in the book because someone can think, okay, I need to go buy a very expensive crystal and that's going to be what I use in my home to change the energy of the space. But instead, I mean that's included. It's a yes and situation. So that's included, but there's also the possibility that you could have curiosity, set the intention when you leave your house to see if a rock wants to meet you or has
I
a
love
message
it.
for you. And for you it did. You met a rock and
Mhm.
it wanted to come home with you and now it's your little companion and it'll stay with you and as long as it needs to stay with you, maybe forever, maybe just a day, but on one hand, I wanted to make sure that people understood you don't have to spend money on things and we don't have to buy things, right? We don't
Right.
have to consume more. But and also there's that invitation to be mindful and connect with your environment and also learning how to ask for permission or communicate with inanimate things or communicate with the natural world. So there's many teachings in it. And
Yeah.
also like all the colors you described are really interesting. So like when I see it, I kind of see like earthy colors
Mhm.
and it's a stone, so I would think it's earth element, but then you see so much more in it. You see orange with orange and red, which is the fire element. You
Yeah.
see to me it feels earthy, but it's also a stone, which is from the earth. So there's earth element, but then you also said it's kind of purpley, which is the color of the area of the Bagua map that relates to abundance. And the Bagua map, for those listeners that don't know, it's like the feng shui energy map. So there's different areas, life areas, and one of them relates to wealth and abundance, and that's the color purple. So you're making all these interesting connections.
It's funny that you say that because I feel like the Bagua map, you just literally broke it down for me because I was not necessarily understanding. And some of these words, like I did not even realize that she was QI.
Oh yeah, so chi can be QI, CHI, but it's also like KI, and it's like prana in yoga.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God, I have not even been saying, like, I literally looked up Google and I typed in QI and I did the
Mhm.
sound and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound, he doesn't sound like he's even saying it right. But
Uh,
I'm like, no, that's what it is. Cause yeah. But I didn't have a full grasp on what the Bagua was. And you just described it because you said that it can have like layers I say you, your book and your book.
It is
But
me.
yeah, it is you. But for whatever reason, that part, like, lost me.
Yeah, a lot of people get confused with the Bagua map, and,
Okay.
like I was talking about that retreat I just,
Mhm.
held, and the retreat I hosted had some one of my teachers actually came, one of my mentors ca my Feng Shui mentors came, and there were practitioners there, but there was also people that were completely new to Feng Shui.
Mhm.
So, it was interesting because sometimes, like, I think, like, some of the experienced practitioners were trying to explain it to the new people, and I think I've just done it so much that I try to break it down as simply as possible, and everyone gets confused, so because it's not a simple concept, but to just simplify it, it is like a mandala. Most people aren't kind of familiar with mandala, but a mandala is like uh, a center with 8 with, areas that radiate out of it. So you can imagine like a circle, like a pie with 8 pieces.
Okay.
8 pieces of
Yes.
pie, 8 sections of pie, right? Or
Okay.
8 or like a pizza cut into 8 slices, right?
Okay.
So there's a center where they all meet, and then the lines radiate out. And the Bagua map can be expressed like in a 3 by 3 grid, like a tic-tac-toe, or
Mhm.
an octagon, which is an 8-sided shape, or like that pie with the 8 slices. And it relates to like you can imagine you're standing in the center, and then there's north, south, east, west, and then like southwest,
Okay.
southeast, northeast, and northwest. Um, so
Like, yeah, anyway.
but yeah, so it's like all these different directions that have different layers of meaning. Like the lists are infinite. So it could be a color, it could be like a life area, it could be an element. So there's all like an organ, there's all these
Okay.
associations with each area.
That makes more sense.
And the simplest way I think is in my book, I tried to make it really accessible, is I laid the bagua on a bed.
That helped a
Yeah.
lot.
Okay. 'Cause almost everyone, some people have round beds, but very rare. It's very rare. I've seen one round bed in a, like, I think I saw a round bed in a very expensive, like, furniture store once, and maybe, like, on a movie or something. Like a heart, you remember those heart-shaped beds or something in the movies?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but almost everyone has a rectangular, kinda squarish bed, so you can
Mhm.
easily divide that into a 3 by 3 grid, and then the footboard and the headboard is easy to identify. So you can lay the bagua based on that orientation. Yeah, and you're holding up the picture. And then and then you could see the bagua laid on the bed, because the bagua is this mandala that can be laid on your bed, on your bedroom, on your desk, on your home, on your whole house. It can expand and get it can expand and contract.
This is But this is just, like, energetically, right? That it You said that the mandala can be, like, laid on your home, is that
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, energetically.
Okay, that makes sense. So for the bed that you
Mhm,
have here, does this mean, like, in this picture right here,
mhm.
hang on, of the purple part,
Yep.
does that mean it's in the top left part of my bed?
Yes, if you're
Or
standing at the foot of your bed,
okay,
looking at the headboard, if you divided your bed into a 3 by 3 grid like a tic-tac-toe, the
yep,
top left, section would relate to, prosperity, to wealth and abundance and self-worth, and the color is purple, the element is wood, and I said, like, that whole list goes on, but it also ties into the color of the stone that you found.
okay. So does that mean that I'm supposed to put those 108 coins on, like, in that top left area?
Well, so this is where you know how you said, like, you like people to give you exactly what to do?
Yeah, can't you
Uh,
see?
yeah, no, but I understand. I also like that too. So I know I've worked with so many people that I understand it needs to be a balance of, like, giving someone a very clear example,
Mhm.
And then also having the opportunity to let those guidelines fall away while still being respectful to the essence of it.
Okay.
So in that Bagua map for the listeners, I gave suggestions on how you could divide up your bed into the Bagua map, and then if there's a life area you'd like to work on, what you could do in that area of your bed, like for instance, underneath your mattress, and to activate that area. So Melissa was pointing out the purple area, which relates to the wealth and abundance. And so if you would locate that by standing at the foot of your bed, looking at your headboard, the top left corner, like under the pillow of the person who sleeps on the left side when you're facing the headboard. And one of my suggestions, or my suggestion in the book, was to place coins there. And 108 is an auspicious number. And it's also a little bit like of work to get 108 coins, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
Especially because we have a coin shortage
Yeah,
right
you
now.
said quarters, and I'm like, lady, come on.
Wait, I forgot exactly what I wrote because I kind of I mean I okay, so I wrote, oh, put 108 coins of your choice, for instance, like a euro or a quarter. And I know that we're having a coin shortage, so you could do 108 pennies, whatever you want. Um, I also was gonna say $108, but coins have more weight to it. In a
Oh.
purple envelope, so purple is the color of the area, so you're kind of working with enhancing that color with the wish that you recognize your true value.
Mm.
But since Melissa, since we're talking about this for some reason and you brought it up and you found this stone and that it found you and you kind of connected to the color purple, but also red with fire, maybe it's something that you could try placing in that area of your bed and see what happens, and place that. You could put it in a purple envelope or just put it under your mattress with the wish that you recognize your true value, just like you had recognized that stone.
I love that. I'm doing it.
Okay.
I love that. Okay. I am now understanding the Bagua much more. And I probably like skimmed over it. But like I said, some of this stuff I feel like, you might need to hear it a couple times and like reread it to like kind of really, I mean, I do understand now, but I'm just saying, like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, like with my students, basically, from it's like when you learn a musical instrument, you play the scales over and
Mm,
over and over and over and over, and then once you know them so well, that's when you can improvise and play.
yes.
So I've said this and taught this so many times that like I improvised with the 108 coins, right, in my book as an example for someone
Yep.
to have a practical way, something that they can do and not be lost.
Mhm.
Because they haven't. I'm assuming that most of the people that read this have not practiced um, their scales about this so many times, and that's why they're reading the book.
Yep.
So it is, but it's fun. Like I think there's a lot of relaxation that comes when you can be guided and also do things over and over again, just like painting, when you paint,
Yep.
or just like, yeah, the scales on a piano. If you really enjoy it, you hear the nuances each time you practice, right?
Yep. That is so true. That's why I'm like in in our 3 interviews that I've done, I take like a little bit more and understand it, I understand the concept, but then there's new things or the same things that you'll say maybe in the previous interviews we've done and I'm like, "Oh, I do understand that more now than I did previously."
Yeah, and I'm still a student too. Like I still study with my teachers. It's really a lifetime practice, and I'm actually really a little bit pleased when I talk to my graduates. Like I talked to one last night and she talked about how, this is just the beginning. Like she graduated from our 6-month certification program, but it's only a beginning because it's a whole lifestyle and it's a whole
Yeah.
new way of looking at the world. Not that everyone has to do that, but you can go really deep with this practice because it's not just about like placing a color here to
Mhm.
activate your wealth, but why do you not feel wealthy? Why do you not feel abundant? Or what needs recognition, or what needs to be seen, or how do you value yourself more? Because what was it, the one for yours? It was the
Oh yeah,
invitation.
yep, that makes damn good sense.
But that,
Yes.
that the wish that I want you to recognize your true value. And when you can recognize your true value is when you can invite more wealth and abundance, and you actually feel so abundant that you can really give to others and
Yes.
receive.
Yeah. That's not by chance. That was that was supposed to happen. And that's
Okay.
why I love it. Because you're really telling people, I keep saying this over and over. It's not just about go do X, Y, and Z. It's like, but why are you choosing to go do X, Y, and Z?
Mm-hmm.
Because why did I find this rock, or rock find me? What meaning now am I finding in that? It just makes, I don't know. I think it's good to be like curious, and that's exactly what you're encouraging people to do. Is like, where in my life, or why is this speaking to me, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And
I
there's a
love it.
lot of wisdom in that, with that curiosity, that
Mm,
where I was just reading a book recently about anxiety, and they talked about how curiosity actually activates um I don't know. Now I'm forgetting, like serotonin receptors or something.
oh
Like it
yeah, yeah,
activates,
yeah.
curiosity can spark a lot of pleasure in your mind, in your brain.
Hmm.
Um, and it's also that connection to having curiosity, like kind of boundless curiosity that we had when we were children.
Yep. What book is it? Do you mind me asking?
Oh God, I'll look it up. It's something about anxiety.
Okay.
It's hold on. Uh, eh, it's a
I'm read
little
I'm reading the book The Power of Awe right
okay.
now.
Okay.
It's it's kind of an overall view of how like think like in life, when we're in awe of, like, we're curious and we're like joyful as little kids and stuff, and how it
Uh-huh.
like literally has like physiological
Oh.
benefits to that, to whether it's to like lower your heart rate and so on and so forth. And
Mm.
anyways, I was like, that would
All
be crazy if it was the same book, but
No, but all like AWE.
yes,
So,
yes.
but this is kind of it is this book was saying that kind of similar thing. So it's called Unwinding Anxiety by Judson Brewer.
Ah, okay.
Dr. Judson Brewer.
I have not heard of that one.
Because I experience a lot of anxiety. I
Yeah.
think we all do now since the pandemic.
Yeah. I did before. My mom died when I was 25, so like 12 years ago, and after that I did not know, but I started developing debilitating anxiety that would just like ruin all the good times. And finally it took me like 2 or 3 years to realize it was anxiety. Then it took me even longer to figure out why it was happening.
Mm.
So it's kind of been this lifelong, not lifelong, but decade long of dissecting it and finally figuring out ways to manage it.
I understand that. So this is a good book for you too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you is in your book title, or your little tag here, it says creating healing living spaces. So I really wanted to I'm curious about that. And if people would pick that up, they're like, what I want to create a healing living space. What does that even mean? So what is a healing living space, and how do we create one?
Well, I think that okay, so the first word is create. So it's about creativity and making something new, but also changing things and having something come from space, so from nothing. And healing is, I think, touching and pointing to the part of feng shui where feng shui is actually a healing practice, where we could look at our homes as either our partners in our life, or partners to support us, or something that we neglect. So we can create homes that cause more obstacles in our life, more suffering, more hardship. Like it could be something like having like if we are hoarders, for instance, like we're creating a
Mhm.
home that has a lot of physical barriers to us, or if we have like a space that can't accommodate us for whatever reason. So our spaces have the capacity to heal and support. And when you think about it, like when you're physically sick, where do you go?
Your
in
bed.
your room to your
Yep.
bed.
Yep.
You go home to your
Mhm.
most private space in your bedroom to heal, to recuperate, and that's where we go to sleep every night to nourish ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and then living points to the fact that uh, chi, like that life force energy, is always moving. And the idea about feng shui is that we want the chi or the life force energy to always flow and be flexible, because when we are stagnant and stiff,
Mm.
basically means we're dead. Like our body, when we die, our bodies get
Yeah.
sick, right?
Right.
But similarly, when we get stuck, either we
Mm.
get stuck in our lives, or we get stuck on an idea, or we feel stagnant, or we get trapped, or even if we don't move our bodies, all of these
Yep.
things are the opposite of life. And as humans on this earth, we want to celebrate life. We want to celebrate movement and flexibility. So how can we incorporate more flow, like the flow of chi in our lives? But that also means, how do we be more flexible and flowing, like like a blade of grass in the wind, or bamboo in the wind, right? How do we be more flexible? Actually, when I was at my retreat, my teacher brought up an interesting point. Like, we can be like a very stubborn tree that when the wind blows, and the only way that it can be flexible is to break,
Oh.
right?
Yeah.
Or we could be flexible in the wind and just flow with it, like a bamboo, like a bamboo
Yes.
tree, or a trunk of a bamboo trunk. I don't know.
I get
So
what you're saying.
yeah,
I
so
love that concept. Yeah.
yes, so those are all the, like, those words are very loaded.
They are. And like how you just broke those down, I was like, she just literally did like feng shui just on her own damn words that she wrote. Because, and it's interesting because everybody might have an interpretation of like what that even means for them. You know, if somebody
Mhm,
is truly sick with an ailment and they're like, I need a sacred place that I can heal physically, like myself, which I absolutely believe that that could happen with, you know, the healing practice and feng shui and so on and so forth. So
mhm.
I think that is beautiful. um Something else I wanted to tell you today that I made a realization, I think it's because of your book, and it's not really feng shui. Maybe it is related, but maybe not. Forever and ever and ever, I have always, you're going to be like, where is this going? I want to go to Switzerland so
Okay,
bad. It is on my
okay.
number one bucket list. And I am like, why do I want to go to Switzerland? But anytime I see the mountains,
Uh-huh.
I am like enthralled with seeing the mountains. I love the beach just as much as the next person, but I am always called to the mountains for some reason. And when you were breaking down elements, the thing that stuck out to me is I think I want to go to the mountains so much because mountains are like support.
Mhm.
And I feel like since I've lost both of my parents, I'm like kind of on my own. And so like the mountains would be like almost being like, I have you, I'm surrounding you, I'm holding you up. Where like ocean is more like, I don't know, letting you go, like you can go on your own, you're free.
Yeah, that's a good point. In my book, I have this 5 element meditation, like where I guide people through an exploration of all the 5 elements.
Mhm.
And the one related to earth um, is not a mountain. It's actually, you go to Tuscany, Italy.
Yes, it is. I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And when I did this exercise at my retreat, everyone loved the Tuscany, Italy part, where they wanted to go, because you're around your friends. It's very nourishing. You have all the
Mhm.
food that you love in front of you. It's very stable and supportive, all the things that you brought up. And then a lot of people felt uncomfortable with the water element, which is related to fear. And because they are floating, they're invited to float in the middle of the ocean. They felt that was very groundless and a little
Mm.
bit scary. But that so I think it's interesting, and the reason why I put together that meditation is I wanted people to, instead of looking at a list of all the 5 elements, to experience the 5 elements.
Yes.
Yes, in their own way. And those visualizations were inspired by, like, my own experiences.
I love
Um,
that.
but I think that there's so much to unpack there. And when you tell me about like wanting to go to the mountains and or going to like the Switzerland with these very tall mountains,
Mm-hmm.
mountains are considered yang earth, so very
Okay.
strong earth. So it does have this feeling of stability, of a lot of wisdom and support and longevity. But one interesting thing, because you were saying that, because both your parents have passed away, mountains are solitary though. They're
Mm.
part of so the way that we look at the mountain in feng shui, there's actually, the mountain is related to one of the bagua areas. It's the dark blue area that's called gun. It's related to the mountain. It's related to our self cultivation, our spirituality, and our skillfulness. And we talk about the mountain being a place where you climb up the mountain alone. Like, even if you went with a group, you would still go single file, right? You
Yeah.
wouldn't like go in a big like huddle, right? I mean, you kind of like go, when you're really climbing a mountain, it's kind of a lonely journey to reach that apex. And it's we also say, like, you have to go to the mountain doesn't come to you.
Mm.
But the mountains have been there for such a long time, and they've seen a lot. So there's a great deal of wisdom, not a lot of movement, maybe a little bit stubborn, but there's all these like metaphors that connect and
Yeah.
meanings that connect with the mountain. So it is having, like, there's a mountain ranges, but generally there's just like, the mountains are pretty solitary. So you're still bringing up that solitary
That's
energy.
interesting. That is so interesting. And I think I read about the mountain. Maybe you wrote about it when you were writing about the headboard thing.
Yes, because a headboard can also
Because
be like a mountain that supports you.
I don't have a damn headboard, and I've
Oh.
I've already known that. I know we talked about this
We
last
talked about this
time.
before, okay.
Yeah. I think that's when I made the correlation, but that's really interesting. And when you said the mountain thing with the wisdom, that like struck me. It's
Mhm.
like like, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways.
there's a lot of metaphors, and I also think about, like, I went to architecture school, and one of my final projects was it was like a homeless shelter, but I but I made like this part of the homeless shelter where they each had a room, like each person that was staying there would
Mhm.
have their own room, and they had like a little ladder at the edge of their bed where they could go up. um Oh, wait, no, sorry. Let me rewind. There was a part where you had to climb up, like, a bunch of stairs to get to the top of the building, and you could see, like, the stars and everything from the top of the building, but, the idea was that you had to climb up this mountain, so there's, like, a very meditative feeling
Mm.
about, like, almost like the hermit that is climbing up the mountain on their own, but still, in search of wisdom and understanding, and also to see the bird's eye view of like everything that's going on, to not be so focused on the minutia, but able to see everything all at once.
Yeah. I love that. How did you create that, or was it just like a project like on paper?
Oh no, it was just a project on paper.
That sounds awesome though.
Yeah.
There needs to be a homeless shelter like that.
Yeah, it was an interesting project. I think it got good feedback, because I don't
Mhm.
know if you know anything about like architecture school, but it's like art school where they completely critique, they critique you so much. They have critiques and they just like tear you apart.
Oh,
But
geez.
but they actually told me, we're critiquing you to this detail because there's so much there.
Mm.
But I think but I felt like I did a great job on it.
Yeah. That's why they critiqued you so much.
That's
That is awesome. Okay, well, a couple things I wanna ask just to kinda talk about, and we're almost done. We have about, like, 9 or 10 more minutes. Oh, wait, you have a hard stop, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. So we have 4 minutes.
We have 4 minutes, just kidding. Oh my god, sorry, my clock is done. Okay, well, what are some final things? Why don't we talk about the name of your book again?
Mhm.
And then what are some final things that you can, share with my audience? for about feng shui. Yes, I love
So,
that book.
so it's mindful homes create healing living spaces. I can't even remember my subtitle.
With mindfulness and feng
Mindfulness and feng
shui.
shui. Yeah, and it's available wherever books are sold. So I think what are some takeaways? Well, I wrote this book for newbies and longtime practitioners because I felt that it was very important at this time for me to be able to put together a book that brings together my practices of
Mhm.
meditation with feng shui, because up until now everything that I've studied in depth, like meditation, Buddhism, feng shui, as well as I do Japanese flower arranging, Japanese tea ceremony, a lot of these Buddhist practices, art practices, all point to this importance of beginning to see that we're interconnected and interdependent with our environments, that we're not separate from the spaces around us, we're not separate from our homes, and we're not separate from the people around us. Everything is in relationship with each other, and that's so important because that's when we can start to feel more compassion, have more understanding, and I think the world is really yearning to have more connection, right? So I felt like it was a very timely moment to write this book. And it also is an expression of my own growth over the last 2 decades, getting to this point where, when I wrote my first book, I only had the confidence to tell people tips on what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, you should do this and this will happen, which is
Mm.
okay, right? But
Yeah.
now that I've worked with so many people and taught so many students, and from my own experience, I know that that's a great gateway, just like people maybe come to meditation because they want to focus more, or they go to yoga to have more flexibility. But once we walk through that door, we see that there's so much beyond that we hadn't recognized. It's almost like it's like walking out a door into the world and seeing all the beauty within the environment around us or the world around us. So I felt that that was really important to do.
I think that is beautiful. And I have not read your first book, but you had said that at the beginning of this book. And I just think it's beautiful to see as a reader, your the growth and what that means to you. So congratulations. It's awesome. I'm going to be finishing it tonight. Um, I know you have to go, but I have one question that I ask all of my listeners.
Yes.
In your own words, what does the bright side of life mean to you?
The bright side of life means always waking up in the morning, walking out in the sun, and just accepting what comes, whether it's a sunny day or if it's whether it's a cloudy day, to be open and accepting and to see the bright side of it, because all living things grow towards the light. We all want
Mm.
more light and brightness in our life and luminosity, and we want to be able to see clearly. So that's how I would look at the bright side of life.
I love it. That's beautiful. Well, Angie, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And congratulations on your book again.
Thank you.
You